Minister Bishop has been an enthusiastic supporter of the U.S. Studies Center and of Alliance 21 for many years, and particularly since she was appointed as Australia's first female foreign minister in September last year. We were very, very happy to have her join us in January of this year at our major conference in Washington. And in her keynote address, as a way to encourage all of us, she quoted the United States President Abraham Lincoln when he said, "The best way to predict your future is to create it." She was saying that as encouragement to all of us in saying that the Alliance 21 project, led by the U.S. Studies Center, is going to have to be a part of that future creating process for our two countries. Minister, I think I speak for our board, all of our supporters, all the staff at the U.S. Studies Center, when I say that we look to continue working with you and with the federal government for the continued success of Alliance 21 in the years ahead. In that same address, Minister Bishop spoke compellingly about the historical strength of the U.S.-Australia alliance, but also about the challenges it faces today and in the future. She spoke of how the United States is Australia's most important economic partner, and she spoke to how, as partners together, Australia and the United States are stronger in tandem than they would be operating separately. And that's certainly true across many, many facets of this relationship that we're addressing in this conference today. We've given a special highlight in this conference to the Australia-U.S. alliance in the context of a rapidly emerging Asia. Australia and the United States separately, but mostly together, we know are deeply engaged in this region at the highest levels, engaged with organizations such as APEC, with our partners in ASEAN, with important partners in Northeast Asia, and of course trying to push forward the Trans-Pacific Partnership. But it's interesting that while she is surely engaged at that very high level, she's undertaken, I think, a very interesting initiative which is pitched at a different level, but is no less important. I'm speaking about the new Colombo Plan, Minister, this signature policy of yours that is looking to send Australian young people to live and study at universities and workplaces across the Asia-Pacific. This is a far-sighted, I would say, and far-reaching program to see Australia more deeply engaged in this region. The plan was launched just last December, and only a few days after we all met in Washington, D.C. in January, the first students left Australia to begin their studies abroad in Indonesia, Japan, Singapore, and Hong Kong. This program is going to be expanding to other countries, not least China, this year and in the years ahead. I'm pleased to say that the U.S. Studies Center is also engaging in its own kind of Colombo Plan, I guess, as we try to expand our work in the Asia-Pacific region as well, not least with the establishment of the Perth U.S. Asia Center at the University of Western Australia, and later this year, just in 2 weeks' time, in fact, we're going to be sending our first contingent of students from the University of Sydney to a 8-week short course at Fudan University Center for American Studies. So those students are going to have the opportunity to live and study in one of the world's most dynamic cities, Shanghai, but learn about the United States through courses offered by both Chinese, Australian, and American faculty. So I just want to congratulate the Minister on such a far-sighted policy, and one that's sure to bring great benefit to Australia and, yes, to the United States. While the new Colombo Plan does not directly involve the United States, I think it's certainly to our benefit because a partner like Australia, more deeply engaged in the region, is a benefit to the United States. Now, this policy, combining as it does foreign affairs, trade, and education, I think makes sense, coming from a person like Minister Bishop, who prior to her current role served for 4 years as shadow foreign minister and was also Minister for Education, Science, and Training in the Howard government. And it was in this role, I am pleased to say, that her support was so critically important for the establishment of the U.S. Studies Center so many years ago. While she was in the Howard government, Minister Bishop was also Minister for Aging and Minister for assisting the Prime Minister on women's issues. And today, in addition to her portfolio covering foreign affairs, Ms. Bishop is the Deputy Leader of the Liberal Party. So once again, I want to thank the Minister for coming with us today. We're looking forward to your remarks. Thank you for your support of the U.S. Studies Center and Alliance 21. Please join me in welcoming the Honorable Julie Bishop.
Thank you, Bates, and thank you for your promotion of the new Colombo Plan. It most certainly is an important initiative. In fact, it is where the coalition government's commitment to engaging more deeply in our region finds its true expression. It is a real pleasure to be here this morning to participate once again in this vitally important conversation about the future of the Australia-United States alliance. The alliance that it is at the heart of Australian foreign and security policy. It's the very cornerstone of our strategic architecture, built on our shared values and priorities, our commitment to freedom and democracy, peace and prosperity, and a rules-based international order. This commitment to values is not abstract, but a real and tangible force, a commitment to action when required. That's why it's so important that our alliance strengthens and evolves as our nations and the geopolitical environment evolves. Neither Australia nor the United States are the nations they were in 1951, when Foreign Minister Percy Spender and Secretary of State Dean Acheson, along with New Zealand's Carl Berenson, signed the ANZUS Treaty. They could scarcely have imagined the world we live in today, given the extraordinary achievements and challenges of the past 63 years. And I doubt they could have pictured the particular complexities of the shifting global order we face today. However, the core characteristics of our alliance are very much intact and have deepened. This is a credit to those who drafted the original treaty, motivated by an optimism about the future, a determination to innovate and change with the times, and most of all, to remain friends and allies. At the heart of the treaty is a commitment to come to one another's aid in the worst of times, and when times are good, to work together in the interests of both our nations and the wider world to create peace and prosperity. The success of the alliance in the past gives us a solid foundation to meet the challenges of changing times. Our relationship is enhanced by our economic partnership, building on the Australia-US Free Trade Agreement, and our two-way investment stocks are worth over $1 trillion, plus there's our two-way trade. It's United States investment in our energy and resource sector that enables us to be an energy powerhouse, to enable us to supply China and South Korea and Japan with LNG, for example. To ensure that our success endures, it's important that we think critically about the alliance, what it means to us, what it can achieve for us, and work to create new pathways for cooperation in the 21st century. So I congratulate the Alliance 21 project and the US Studies Centre, I'm big supporters of both, on your efforts to find new ways to bolster the alliance in this era of constant change. When I spoke to the Alliance 21 conference in Washington earlier this year, I focused on some of the most pressing shared challenges we're facing in the region: North Korea, the struggle with terrorism, the future of Afghanistan. Today, the unexpected and deeply concerning events unfolding in northern Iraq and Syria again put the alliance to work. Already it's clear that the alliance will be as important in the 21st century as it has been in the 20th, and that the United States will remain a global power throughout this century, even as Asia continues to rise. For many, the mantra of the past decade has been that the 21st century is the Asian century. For some, it's even a narrower view that this will be China's century. I'm dismayed by the amount of commentary that equates Asia or China's rise with America's decline. Because I think such thinking fails to take into account the depth of the United States' engagement with Asia. And history shows there's room in the global order for more than one centre of power. Of course, the United States, like all advanced economies, faces challenges, economic, political, but the outlook for the United States is stronger than ever, and its role in the Asia-Pacific even more of an imperative. Over coming decades, the United States will remain the single most powerful state in the world. First, the United States is the world's largest economy. According to a recent estimate by Harvard professor Jeffrey Frankel, at market exchange rates, the United States economy is still nearly twice the size of the world's second largest economy, China, and it accounts for almost 23% of global GDP. Yeah, the United States was shaken by the global financial crisis, but the tapering of monetary stimulus that's now underway signifies a recovery benefiting not just the United States itself, but countries like Australia with our trade and investment ties. The manufacturing sector is undergoing a renaissance thanks to revolutions taking place in energy, robotics and information technology. And of course, there's the ingenuity of the American people. In the energy sector, there's significant ongoing growth with phenomenal opportunities in the years ahead. The United States has the second largest shale oil reserves in the world and the fourth largest shale gas reserves, and has pioneered the development of new technologies to exploit them. The United States enjoys natural gas prices that are well below many of its OECD peers, giving American manufacturers a unique competitive advantage. The United States remains the world's most dynamic and innovative economy. Big data, 3D printing and growing communication between devices are part of this transformation. More important than size alone, America has the kind of economy that enables it to help itself. Superior business management and entrepreneurship are its hallmarks, the capacity to take up rapid technological changes and build competitiveness. And of course, the US higher education system is unrivalled in the world. US institutions occupy 8 of the top 10 positions on the prestigious Times Higher Education World Reputation rankings and 46 of the top 100 institutions. There can be no doubt that America has used its dominance of the 20th century to build the institutions and culture that will enable it to continue to thrive into the 21st century. Now, issues that could barely have been imagined when the first ANZUS text was drafted 63 years ago are now at the forefront of our defence and security relationship. Consider America's world-leading role in outer space. The US did more than any other nation to launch humanity into the space age. It inspired people everywhere by putting men on the moon less than 25 years after the end of the Second World War. Nearly 5 decades on, it remains the fact that the only moon boots have been American. And next year, an American spacecraft will be the first ever to travel to the distant dwarf planet of Pluto. Sometimes the significance of these achievements needs to be appreciated for their pioneering and groundbreaking nature. The United States continues to drive space developments that are quietly transforming societies around the globe with satellite technologies that have become indispensable in our lives. And the United States and Australia are working closely to further our aims in space and focusing on safeguarding the sustainability, safety and security of the space environment. At the last AUSMIN meeting, Defence Minister David Johnston and I reaffirmed with US Secretaries Kerry and Hagel both countries' commitment to a partnership on space situational awareness. And joint work is now underway to relocate 2 vital American space assets to my home state of Western Australia. The highly advanced Space Surveillance Telescope and C-band radar will make use of Australia's unique geography, in other words, we've got a lot of space, to increase the Southern Hemisphere coverage of the US space surveillance network. This network provides a service that's crucial to satellite safety worldwide by tracking space objects and providing alerts of potential collisions. We're also working closely to drive global action on space debris, space junk. Central to our alliance is our cooperation on intelligence. For much of the alliance history, this focused on the Soviet Union and its Cold War allies. But since September 11, our collaboration has been directed particularly at the threat of non-state actors, at terrorism. This cooperation doesn't benefit just the United States and Australia and our Five Eyes network. It helps us to work with friends and neighbours and allies and partners more broadly in countering the threats that they face. As our Prime Minister said during his very successful recent visit to North America, quote, "With continuing terrorist threats exacerbated by militarised radicals returning from Syria, with Russia's interference in Ukraine, tensions in the South China Sea, and the potential for nuclear brinkmanship in Iran, good intelligence is ultimately in the world's interests, not just in our nation's." There's also long-standing close collaboration between Australia and the United States on cyberspace. In 2011, our two nations agreed that if a cyber attack were to threaten either country's territorial integrity, political independence, or our security, we would work together to address that threat. And we continue to work together in the ASEAN Regional Forum on confidence-building measures to avoid conflict between states in cyberspace. So space, intelligence, cyber. These three areas exemplify the evolution of the alliance to meet contemporary challenges. Another 6 decades from now on, I have no doubt we'll be cooperating in spheres that we cannot even imagine today. Regardless of the challenges to come, an engaged and connected United States is vital to the future security and prosperity of our region. Australia's foreign policy is firmly focused on advancing our own national interests. But this alliance is part of our national interest and has never been more important to our national security and the security and economic prosperity of our region. American engagement in our region supports the established international rules-based system. And when I meet with leaders and foreign ministers from around the Indian Ocean, Asia-Pacific region, they tell me they want more United States leadership, more United States engagement in the region, not less. They know that each country in this region has benefited from the peace and stability that the United States' presence here has supported and encouraged. They know that the extraordinary economic growth and the increased prosperity that they've created over the past 2 decades has been on the back of that stability. I agree. It's in all our interests that the United States continue its diverse and multi-dimensional engagement in our neighbourhood. The Australia-US alliance is an important pillar of that regional engagement. Our shared commitment to the Trans-Pacific Partnership is one way that we're taking this forward. The TPP is a mechanism of greater and more complex integration, and it's a gateway to Indian Ocean Asia-Pacific markets and opportunities for trade and investment on a much greater scale. In the strategic sphere, we have a shared commitment to the joint posture initiatives that include a rotational presence of thousands of US Marines in Darwin. We're also working to develop enhanced cooperation between the Royal Australian Air Force and the US Air Force over coming years. And we look forward to opportunities for increased naval cooperation as agreed at the AUSMIN meeting last year. These initiatives are part of a natural evolution of our long-standing bilateral defence cooperation. They offer opportunities to strengthen cooperation with regional partners through combined training and exercises, including important areas such as humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. Importantly, Australia and the United States are continuing to develop defence engagement with China through ship visits, reciprocal exchanges and exercises. Later this month, in Hawaii, China will participate in the world's largest international maritime warfare exercise, RIMPAC. This is our core work, to develop a genuine and comprehensive sense of community in the region, where cooperation is the default principle. We envisage a region where China's development as a prosperous nation is welcomed and where China is actively and constructively engaged as a significant power in regional and global affairs. A region where cooperation and dialogue is the norm through ASEAN and APEC and the East Asia Summit to forge closer ties, cooperation, transparency and understanding between the very diverse nations of the Indian Ocean, Asia Pacific. It's our fundamental expectation that our region will continue to grow peacefully. The job for the Alliance is to build relationships with our neighbours, to prevent misunderstanding, to build the institutional frameworks to deal with any disputes that arise and do it peacefully, and through established channels and international law. And if things don't go quite to plan, the Alliance gives us a framework within which to tackle security issues in the region. To navigate unpredictable change, we have to strive to shape our future while drawing upon the best of the past. Our countries are smart, creative and committed to the shared values of democratic order and freedom that underpin all of the progress that we've made. That's part of what the Alliance 21 project is all about, to harness the opportunities of our close relationship to build bridges from the past to the future. In 2 months, Defence Minister David Johnson and I will host Secretary of State Kerry and Secretary of Defence Hagel for the next round of AUSMIN. Our intention will be to combine American influence and capability with Australia's own economic and strategic strengths to work together for the good of our nations and beyond. The Alliance will remain the touchstone of our relationship, and I trust that the work of the Alliance 21 project and the US Studies Centre will play a continuing and important role in ensuring this remains a vibrant and dynamic partnership. Thank you.
We have about 5 minutes. Would you be able to? We only have about 5 minutes at this point. Minister Bishop has another engagement later this afternoon, but she has kindly agreed to entertain 1 or 2 questions from the floor. If anyone would like to pose a question to the Minister, please just raise your hand and we'll get a microphone to you.
It's not just another engagement, Bates. I'm at the National Press Club at 12 noon, but, you know, no pressure.
With some important things to say.
About our new aid program for
There's
the
someone
Pacific.
in the back there, please. Would you wait for the microphone? Thank you.
Hi, Felicity Norman from the Australian National University. I was just interested in how you see Australia and the United States' role in potential conflicts or tensions in the South China Sea.
Both the United States and Australia have committed not to take sides in the sovereignty claims, and we have both encouraged all stakeholders to resolve their disputes peacefully in accordance with international law, in accordance with international norms. And so I see our role as encouraging consultation and peaceful negotiations. And in the South China Sea, the ASEAN nations are working to conclude a code of conduct with China, and we are both encouraging that work to conclude so that these tensions are de-escalated, so that the territorial disputes are managed peacefully and in the interests of everyone in the region.
Thank you. Did you have a question here? Yes, thank you. And we'll wrap up there.
Minister Bishop, thank you very much. John Blackson from ANU. There's interesting, we heard before about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the trade arrangement with the United States. We know about the Regional Cooperation for Economic Partnership, the RCEP, and they seem to be at odds. And there doesn't seem to be much space for reconciliation. What's your sense of the prospects of them both working? What's your sense of China's engagement with those two? And do you think we've got a way forward that's going to work for both of those arrangements?
Oh yes, I'm exceedingly optimistic about both. I think the Trans-Pacific Partnership negotiations will conclude in a way that creates a fantastic free trade zone amongst the 12 members of the TPP. Many of us have free trade agreements between us, and of course Japan was a late addition into the TPP but hasn't slowed down our negotiations at all. In fact, in the meantime, Australia has concluded a free trade agreement with Japan, so that provides more ballast and impetus to the TPP. So I expect the TPP to continue to a final conclusion with some good prospects for the negotiations finishing in the not too distant future. In relation to RCEP, I actually see them as complementary. RCEP comprises the ASEAN nations and others like Australia, the dialogue partners, and China. And the discussions that I've had with those involved in the RCEP negotiations is that they see the two agreements ultimately realising the APEC dream of an Asia-Pacific free trade zone. And my discussions with China have also given me an indication that that's how they're thinking. I think China's attracted to the TPP. They've got the RCEP underway, but I see them both becoming complementary, so they are some parts of a whole. And the idea of an Asia-Pacific free trade zone involving the countries of the TPP plus the countries of RCEP, I think is an exciting prospect for future economic growth and prosperity for all of the nations involved.
Well, thank you very much, Minister Bishop. I know that you're on a very, very pressing schedule here. We're very grateful that you were able to carve out some time and spend it with us here this morning before the important appearance before the press club.
Not more important, just an appearance.
Yeah, very good. We do appreciate your time very much, and we're looking forward to continuing our engagement. Again, on behalf of the U.S. Studies Center and the Alliance 21 program, as well as all of us gathered here, we're very, very grateful for all of your continuing support and interest in what we're doing. Thanks so much. Thanks a lot.